We'll begin this hour with the Armed Forces of Liberia, which is set to immortalize officers and soldiers of the Nigerian military who paid a supreme sacrifice during peacekeeping operations in the country. This was disclosed by the Chief of Staff, the Armed Forces of Liberia, Major General Prince Charles Johnson III, who paid a courtesy call on the Chief of Defense Staff at the Defense Headquarters in Abuja. Well, he eulogized the Nigerian military for the technical assistance rendered through the economic community of West African states and for the sacrifices rendered by Nigerian troops to the people of Liberia in restoring peace during the internal strife experienced in the country. The Liberian Armed Forces Chief also called for more collaboration and bilateral relations in the area of training.
Liberia, Nigeria stand a long way from where we come from. Both countries, I will tell you today, we have 17 years of relative peace because of the sacrifices the men and women from Nigeria have posed into Liberia that today we are what we are. Today our visit is a courtesy call to attend the 44th graduation of senior class in Georgia and to also pay a courtesy call on the Chief of Defense Staff to see the possibility of how we can work in the issue of contemporary threats we have in our region to see how best Liberia, the armed forces of Liberia, can tap on the expertise, the training that we have already receiving from your armed forces, sir. So our reason being here is how best we can cement that tie and how best we can benefit as we already have benefited from the Nigerian armed forces.
That we're now visiting the headquarters today is something of delight. Delight in the sense that, as you remarked, we've had very long-standing relations, talking about Nigeria and Liberia. Your kind words also as to what we've been able to do at the time when Liberia was challenged security-wise. And for us as members of the armed forces and Nigeria in general, we remain very proud of some of the efforts that we have made, not just in your country, but equally within the West African sub-region.
That's Nigeria's Chief of Defense Staff, General Lucky Irabo there. And for more on this global reports, let's now bring in, of course, Global Affairs analyst Paul Ejime, who joins me now in the studio. Paul, thank you so much for being here. This is quite refreshing to see that, 17 years after the end of that dreadful Liberian war, which lasted for about 14 years in total, Nigerian soldiers are now being recognized for their roles that they played. But you are a person who you were active at the time. Paint us a picture as to the role really Nigeria played beyond the military, but to see an end to that war in that country.
Thank you, Amaka. And for a change, I think today's bulletin is rife with good news. Congratulations, Arise, for winning the award, and congratulations, Nigeria, for the doctors that performed the surgery on the vice president. And and here is another welcome news. Nigeria did very well, and that is why you'll find it whenever, if you go to Liberia or Sierra Leone, you find Nigerian head of state Babangida Abacha. You find their names on named streets and all that. But the supreme, it was Nigeria sacrificed both money, financial, blood, and sweat. It is estimated there's some $6 billion were spent, and more than 1,000 of these courageous men and women fell in this war. Let us also not forget that there were journalists, two journalists from the Champion and Guardian, yes, the Tayo Awotusi and then Chris Imonibe. Chris was from Guardian and Tayo was from the Champion. They also were killed by Taylor forces. And up to now, I was reading something about Chris's wife. She is living as a widow. She hasn't remarried and has had a stroke and is going through a lot. So when you now remember the dead, you also have to, you are paying tribute to the living. I was one of the 10 journalists that went with ECOMOG in that first consignment of August 1990 with Ambe, NNS Ambe, the naval ship. We took off from Victoria Harbour in Freetown. A Ghanaian was the head, but later Nigerian commanders, you name people like Victor General Malu, and then Brigadier Kobe, who he fought in Liberia and then later went to Sierra Leone and became their chief of defense staff. That tells you a lot. Those men are gone. They didn't die in the field. They you know, but it would be you know, commendable for the Nigerian government to also try to remember them, remember their families. For instance, the British journalist Elizabeth Blunt that went with us, she was honored with an MBE, member of British Empire, for doing exactly what we did. But here we are not complaining, but I think giving honor to whom honor is due is just in place. So I think it's good news if after how many years they are recognizing, but let us give it to chapeau, you say, to the Nigerian armed forces, men and women. They acquitted themselves creditably. Without them, those wars would not have ended. The UN, it was only in 1993 that the UN came in with their mission. But you look at the history, UN is not wired to end these wars. Even Chapter 7 that allows them to fight back, they do not do it.
They focus on the humanitarian aspect
because
of wars.
again, because they are also looking at the, they can't take casualties because of the insurance. That is part of the problem. But you see, when it is coming from Africa, the insurance is not there, so they can go and die. America and others left. America had huge, even a broadcasting station in Liberia. But when the war came, they were only at the station, their ship at the harbor, and asked you know, Africans to go and fight and die for their brothers and sisters, which they did, you know, effectively. Of course, you have so many children that the soldiers
I think they're called the ECOMOG generation,
yes.
Honestly. But, you know, Paul Ejime, these are serious issues that we're talking about right now. Nigeria has played a major role in securing not just, you know, our neighbors here, but even beyond the sub-region. But one wonders, you know, some would criticize and say, despite all that we have given, we have not gotten the same level of support since insecurity became rife in our nation, going to almost 13 years now.
I don't think.
Do you think the African continent has actually done enough really to support Nigeria, especially looking at the role we had played in the past to see an end to insecurity in some countries?
Well, it is a mix. It's only now that Liberians are doing so. South Africa, it is zero because xenophobic thing, they are attacking Nigerians. You go to Ghana, it's almost the same thing. But Nigeria played a major part with its foreign policy centered on Africa. The independence of countries like Zimbabwe, like Namibia, like Angola, all of them, Nigeria played a part. Of course, you say it had the petrodollar that is used in those days. But that is not just petrodollar. There were, I remember that time of General Nwachukwu as a foreign minister, you know, it was, and all the foreign ministers you had, Gambari and others, they played Akinyemi. All these men had what you call what is it? A strategy driving Nigerian foreign policy at every point in time. At times it was citizen democracy. At times it was concentric. At times it was you know, good neighborliness. The point about being, the others will say they don't owe you a living. You have to manage, Nigeria has to strategize and maximize what is this help that is given. And not be walking like a Father Christmas or like an elephant and feeding like an ant. You have to go and ask America how they do it. When they give you $1, they almost, you have to pay for it in a way by giving in terms of support. But here, we have conducted in some ways briefcase diplomacy of somebody when we are helping, is somebody walking in with some bag full of money. Now you have to, recalibrate that. The parliament has to know how much you are giving to this country. It is documented. And then the students and from at all levels will have to read it and know about it. Do you know Nigeria spent about 61 billion on anti-apartheid issue about in South Africa? Because even as a young man, you a small, what you call junior officer, we had what we call South African Relief Fund, where everybody was compulsory. You were deducted from source. But here we are. I don't so much blame these countries. I think much has to do with the way Nigeria has conducted its foreign policy. There is need, even when you are doing Africa-centered, you have to begin from home so that you get the benefit, the cost benefit, and then if the return on investment is less than 30%, the economists will say, don't go there, Amaka.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from, because despite being the giant of Africa, like we're regarded as, we still have to look at the economic part of this whole thing. Maybe that's the reason why the House of Representatives, I know that there is a query looking especially into our contributions to ECOWAS and other groups as well. But let's look at the fact that we have these gallant soldiers who go out on international missions, perform stellar, and they're well recognized everywhere in the world, but yet insecurity, we're not able to tackle it in country. Where would you say there's a disconnect, and how do we get it right?
Well, maybe you say the prophet is honored, but only in his country. I think something has to give in terms of command and control. At home, it is not just enough to ship troops, because when they go there, perhaps the environment enables them, there is, incentivize them to do better. But when they come, have you seen Nigerians abroad? How they queue, how they respect the rule? But it's impunity. It is the lack of the fact that people get away with everything and no consequence for things. That is part of the issue. It's a social problem, and I think it has to be addressed. The military used to be known for its discipline. But I'm afraid when they came into government, they became politicized. That's part of the issue. Politicization of the military has also given rise to the type of the things that they are no longer conducting themselves. When you now have the military doing some jobs that the police are meant to do, it means that it does not bode well for good governance or command and control. So I think that is where whoever is in charge, the commander-in-chief, will now have to look at it and get all the armed forces, the Navy, the Air Force, the Army, and others, and all the paramilitary, get them to understand, have coordination, and then also harmonization, and they work as a unit. You see the way they are conducting the security issue. They are talking about disconnect, that the agency support is not there. That is part of the problem that we have at home, which you don't get outside, and perhaps that is why they excel.
Right. Well, we say congratulations to us, and of course we say well done to our troops, because we know it is not easy, and thanks to the Liberian government for recognizing not just the soldiers now, but the role of Nigeria in general in the war. Paul Ejime, Global Affairs Analyst, thank you so much for your insights tonight.
Thank you for having me.